So, we're back, and it's time to go to an unusual source today. We're going to the Mirror, yes, the Mirror of all places, because we're having a look at what the Fleet Street Fox has to say about the recent, shall we say, political upset, I want to say, but it's not really, because this shows how much, or how really the, shall we say, the majority of people actually wanted Brexit. And one of the things that was said during this by-election was that this candidate would not win, and that either the Conservatives would win or that UKIP would get in, because a Remain candidate, this was being quoted by all these, gammons and leavers, was that a Leave candidate would never win in a Remain voting election. And what has happened? A Labour Leave candidate has won in a town that overwhelmingly voted to leave. So, onward to the Fleet Street Fox. Brexit is finished. A Leave constituency just voted in a Remain MP. Only a handful of lunatics still want Brexit. It's game over, gammons. We had a vote. Leave has lost. Get over it. The fact that a 56% Leave constituency just chose a Remain campaigner who wants a people's vote to be MP is delicious. But joy must be tempered by the fact that, to hardline Brexit wingnuts, irony could refer to broccoli, the Earth's core, or something the metropolitan elite uses as a weapon. The turnout was low. The majority was cut. UKIP put on 8%, and besides, if you stuck a red rosette on a horse brick, it would get elected in Wales, they'll say. There's more. There's more at work in the by-election of Ruth Jones and the Brexit campaigners want you to notice. Newport is a former steel town, and its docks were used to export coal. It has needed decades of regeneration. The accepted opinion is that regional, urban and former industrial centres like this are also determinedly leave that Labour will lose its heartlands if it doesn't back Brexit. Ruth has successfully disproven that, as well as two of the ERG's most bloodthirsty threats, that Leave voters will never forgive a betrayal and that they will destroy our political system in revenge. Here we are, a week after Brexit didn't happen, and the voters of Newport West are behaving entirely as you'd expect. During her campaign, Ruth was open about the fact that we can't accept a damaging Tory Brexit or a no-deal outcome. She said, I will support preparing for a public vote just in case Parliament isn't able to achieve a sensible Brexit. But she also spoke about the M4 Relief Road, austerity and crime. She is not a Corbynista or a Blairite. She refused to unequivocally back or condemn the Labour leader, saying that she'd plough my own furrow. As for the turnout, 37% was almost exactly what was predicted, and it's pretty good for a by-election, which can see as few as 18% of voters normally take part. Her nearest opponent, the Tory, Matthew Evans, broadly supported Theresa May's deal, but it wasn't enough to get Leavers to vote for him. And the most wingnutty candidate of all, the cash for questions dimwit Neil Hamilton, merely drew a measly 2,000 votes. He got his deposit back, but no doubt some will crow about the 8% swing. But in the 2015 general election, UKIP got a 9.5% swing and halved its number of MPs from 2 to 1. Newport is not a purple wave so much as a wave goodbye. If Newport West is doing what it has always has, if Brexit doesn't matter, if a people's vote is gaining ground, if UKIP can't persuade more than 1/7 of a centre court that Brexit needs its vote, its former steel towns are going to remain, and that every threat from the hardliners has melted away, well, like threats from the complete melts. Even fears of a hard right insurgents proved groundless. The anti-Muslim For Britain movement, founded by former UKIP deplorable Anne-Marie Walters, polled at just 159 votes. So much for Jacob Rees-Mogg's claim that if we stop Brexit, there will be opening for the extremists. It's an opening, all right, but there's also an anus, and that we're designed for pushing unpleasant things away. The UK has its share of racists, but the maths isn't there to make them an electoral force alone. The more extreme Brexit becomes, the more a screaming Stephen Yaxley Lennon puts himself at the head of the marchers. The more the Mark Fauchelers behave like an angry Sunday roast on the evening news, the less appealing it is to the vast majority of Britons. Combine that with the unappealing facts that the IRA has been reactivated, the NHS is stockpiling toilet rolls like the rest of us, and Parliament is officially answering "don't know" to all questions asked of it, then we ought to have a country that is falling to pieces. Instead, if Newport West is a barometer of these things, we've got a country that just can't be arsed with this anymore. Fascist idiots and saboteurs and traitors, hardliners and leadership coups haven't impressed us. They've damaged the eye-rolling wackos who took part in it all, and if I had to bet who will pay the highest price at the next general election, it will be the people in the blue rosettes and with a lust for a conspiracy and the TV cameras. Britain may not like the EU, but they don't like chaos or crowing about it either. They think red buses are sacrosanct, loathe false advertising, and they take a dim view of being rude to people, except in an amusing, light-hearted fashion at the expense of the French and Germans. When it looks like Paris or Fritz pay us when people who couldn't run a tap vie to run the country, and when the NHS, which is the closest thing we have to a national religion, is clearly going to be irreparably damaged for the sake of a Tory wet dream, that would seriously piss off the Queen, then you have to find that Britons in general decided that they didn't like Brexit a lot more than they don't like the EU. We'll never like the EU. We've always been frenemies with the French and Germans, but as a nation we can put up with them a lot easier than we'll put up with bad-manners twats who double the cost of prescriptions and frighten the nurses. If Brexit isn't mainstream, then it isn't. If Brexit means losing what it means to be British, then it's lost. Newport West, one of the two things, either politics is back to normal, or leavers now want to remain. It's not politics that's broken. Brexit has broken itself, and now it just needs to be buried. And that's probably the biggest news out of that by-election. And as many people have continuously said about how there's going to be this massive purple wave and it's going to sweep away all these things, well, guess what? It hasn't happened. And as we've just been through, a Remain MP, an openly Remain MP who is campaigning for a people's vote, who isn't a Blairite, who isn't a Corbynista, has basically just won very comfortably in a by-election that had a bigger turnout than normal. Then politics, all these threats of a right-wing uprising, and that they're not going to forgive the people who voted for this, is just an idle threat. So I say this to all the Labour MPs who voted and campaigned to remain in the EU, who live in towns who voted to leave. I say this to you now, and I say this to my MP Dan Jarvis, because Dan Jarvis is one of these people. You have nothing to fear. People do not want Brexit. What has happened now is that a very small political fringe of lunatics want it, and the vast majority of people have cottoned on and realised that actually it's going to be incredibly damaging for us, and they now don't want it.